Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew, and what I have for you today is a look at survival tools or smaller tools we can place inside a small kit like this survival tin to give us a lot of versatility in the field to craft other items from. Things to go after food at the water's edge, things to set up traps, tools for bushcraft or fieldcraft, as well as items for defense or even larger game-taking weapons that can fit in a very small kit like this. And I started to come up with an idea. The original idea for the video was to do about 30 different things that I just came up with on the fly. I decided that there were way too many, and then some are more applicable in certain scenarios as opposed to others, and some things are a little bit more complicated and would take a lot of time to explain. So I decided to simplify the video and break it down to tools that we can place inside of this tin and then demonstrate a couple of different options or improvisational methods with a lot of the items in here to give you guys an idea of things that we could be capable of doing with a very small kit like this. Let's go. All right, so I've got my tin here. This tin is full of just tools. All the other smaller items that we would have in a survival tin, like Band-Aids or small paraphernalia like medication, things like that, are not in here. There aren't really any signaling devices either. Always wrap up your survival tin with tape and waterproof it. But in here are just items that we can use for fieldcraft. Fieldcraft is crafting things from the field to give ourselves an advantage while we're in the field. That's the name fieldcraft. So let's take a look inside the tin. All right, so right on top we have tin foil and a bunch of other stuff that's popping out. This is actually about 1 foot in width and about 2 feet in length, and we can use this for a variety of things. One of the things that I like to use this for is for cooking, as well as creating an improvisational lightweight cup that can go in the fire to actually boil water and make it safe to drink. All right, I got my tin foil. Now before cutting it, what we want to do is find our corner. We want to fold this corner at one end all the way up until it sits flat at the top, right along the line right here. We created this little triangle, and then we're going to fold it one more time like this until that same top edge is straight along the top, and then now all we're going to do is cut it right about here. So with this tin foil, all we want to do is fold the tin foil in half with all sides open. And then now that we have that nice crease right along the center, all we're going to do is fold along that crease that we already have established, giving ourselves a nice neat triangle. We're going to take one corner, fold it to this edge. It doesn't matter which one we do first necessarily. Flatten that down, take this other corner, fold it along the top of that line that we just created here by folding the other side first, and then flatten that down. We've basically got a pentagon, 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted correctly. And then all we have to do now is find the center of our cup, those first 2 sheets where we created our first fold, and fold one down on one side, flip this over, fold this down on the other side. And now, pick it up, find the center, separate those 2 portions, simply open up the cup, and then now we have a cup that we can place in the fire. We're gonna need some rocks to actually support this, but we can fill it with water, surround the cup with the fire, and bring that liquid to boil, making it safe to drink. So that's one of the first things. We can do a lot more with this tin foil. We can create a track with it. We can use it as a reflector of the sun's rays to act as a signal. We can use this for cooking or even charring material, but that primary purpose is just making an improvised cup to treat water over a fire, boil it, make it safe to drink. So that's the first thing. Other good items to have are zip ties. We'll use these in just a minute with another task. So I'm going to put those to the side really quick. The next item is just a simple arrowhead. One of the ideas that I have for this video was creating a primitive weapon called a Kestros dart thrower. All we need is an arrowhead, some sort of dart shaft, some fletching, as well as a piece of cord to act as a sling. And we can use just a series of knots or notches and then construct a dart with this as the tip and use that string to launch it like a sling. But with an arrowhead, we can use this, obviously with the bow and arrow that we craft, using some of the cordage in our kit, along with the knife and natural materials from the area. But we could use this as a deadfall trap as well. It could come down on an animal, pinning it in place, and then obviously killing it with the penetration power. Or we can use this as just a simple secondary cutting tool to cut different materials, put it on a stick, and now we have a basic weapon or some sort of blade or knife to actually cut material, process that material, whatever we need. This can do a lot of different things for us, and so having a small arrowhead protected in tape like this is really good. So a Stinger broadhead, 100 grain. Next, the Whirlpack bag. A Whirlpack bag is for water treatment. We can put water in this with iodine tablets. We don't have any in this kit, but we could take this bag as another method for trapping water or collecting water and attempting to get hydrated, and that is by using this as a transpiration bag. All we have to do, fill it full of green leafy material, non-poisonous, and make sure that we're not going to get an irritation or allergic reaction to it, and then put a rock down here in the corner, suspend this bag in full sunlight. Will act as a greenhouse, trapping that moisture content from evaporation. All that liquid or condensation will collect down at the bottom of the bag, and we can maybe get a mouthful of water. Great technique for desert environments, although it's not going to be a technique that we should rely upon to actually save our life. We're going to need to find water to actually survive and hydrate ourselves in large quantities to make it through a desert survival environment. But a Whirlpack bag, 32 ounces, 1 liter, 1 U.S. quart. A very good, handy item to have. Plus, if we already have a canteen or some sort of water container on us, we can use this as a secondary container to either store water, hang it up, or use it as some sort of cache or collector to gather different material and then bring it back to camp. So, Whirlpack bag. Next, we got just a small folding knife. This is just a buck knife. I forget the actual model of this one, but just a nice little knife to have that fits right inside. Big fan of buck knives. I also have the Buck 55, which is even slimmer than this model, if you can see, and this is going to be a good one to throw inside a kit. It takes up less space, but having just a small pocket knife like one of these or anything that fits inside a tin is great because we can still use this for processing material, processing game. I've actually processed several animals with this. Really good knife, stays sharp. Buck's always good for those smaller blades that are reliable and strong that we can put inside a kit. All right, next is currency. We should always have currency on us. I got a buddy in 10th group that carries currency as his form of escape and evasion out of an area. He's going to use that currency to buy himself a ride out of a dangerous situation, and that's great for him, a good technique. We should always have currency on us, either in a boots pocket or somewhere else where we can keep it safe and then use it when we need it. But here I demonstrate just a silver coin. This is a Liberty coin, or a 1 ounce round. We can use this for that same purpose of bartering or getting out of a situation, but it has another use as well, something circular like this. And if we have pen and paper in our kit, just a small notebook and pencil in our kit, we can actually use it combined with our button compass in the kit to help give us a more accurate compass. And the way we do that is by taking our piece of paper and actually tracing silver round right on there, and then using even graph paper like this, that Write in the Rain notebook paper, we can use it to create an even more accurate compass. And so we take this combined with our button compass. So after we draw our compass using our currency or our coin on our Write in the Rain notebook, we get out our button compass, just another tool. This is going to give us general cardinal directions, but now that we have this basic compass on this piece of paper, we can actually use it along with our button compass to give us a higher degree of accuracy for direction. What we're going to do first is start out by zeroing out our compass. To do that, we're going to make sure we have the north-seeking arrow of our button compass aligned with the 0 degree or north line on our drawn compass on our Write in the Rain notebook, and say we wanted to go a 45-degree angle. While holding the compass and not moving, all we're going to do is rotate that piece of paper until north on our button compass is aligned with that 45-degree angle. Now what we do is rotate our entire body, holding our entire compass still. We're going to hold it in our hands. We're not going to move the compass. All we're going to do is pivot with our body. And we're going to pivot until that north-seeking arrow is back on the 0 line, or the north of our compass that we've drawn. And now the direction we're facing holding this compass is 45 degrees. And we use this edge of the paper right here where the 45-degree mark is, and that's our direction of travel. Using this technique means that now, while we're standing at that 45-degree angle, we can look out, identify terrain features along our azimuth or our route or our direction of travel, move to that terrain feature, get another reading, find another piece of terrain, and then continue that process and move, traveling at a 45-degree angle as opposed to guessing. This just gives us a way to travel more accurately if we need to. So using that button compass, Write in the Rain notebook, and then that currency in our survival kit, we can recreate an even more accurate compass. And we can even add the degrees onto the face of this compass to make it even more accurate for us and give us more directions to travel according to our evasion plan of action. So there's another technique. And before I forget, here's a better example of that solar compass that I drew. So we have our day-night base compass, and then here's the actual compass face with better degree markings on it that we can use. Slap it down. We can even use this with a stick as an actual solar compass using the sun's rays to cast a shadow, and then use this. So the same thing as this, we're just using two different methods to achieve the same result. One is going to be a little bit less accurate because of the size of the paper and the scale that we draw. This one's going to be a little bit more accurate. All right, next just a small ferro rod that we can use to start a fire. Here, leaders. These are very small. I forget what size hooks these are, but they're very small leaders. These, in conjunction with our cordage as part of our kit, means that we can do a lot of different things. One, we can use this cordage with this leaders to establish a trot line to suspend over and in the water of a creek where fish may be going up and down with bait attached to these hooks. It's a passive fishing trap, so they come up, grab the bait, swallow it and the hook, and then they get caught. Or we could use just 1 leader or 2 leaders with this line, a stake on the shore with a rock or a heavy object at the end, some sort of weight. With these attached, again, with bait, cast it out into the water and let it sit overnight or for as long as possible. The fish will come up, same thing, take the bait and the hook and get caught on that hook. We call that a night line. So we have a trot line that goes across the creek or along the edge of a body of water, subsurface, and then we have a night line where it's a single point stuck in the ground, cordage attached with our hooks and our weight. We cast it out into the water, into the deeper portions of the water. So all you have to do is come back, grab the line and pull in the fish. Either way, we have subsurface or passive traps that'll work for us. We can set it and forget it. We can also use these hooks to make a cane pole along with that cordage, or we can even use some material to craft a hobo reel, a very small hobo reel like this that we can use to actively fish at the water's edge. Passive methods are going to be best in a non-permissive environment, so we're going to want to use those passive methods first. We can even use some of this to create a net and attempt to get game that way using net or traps, different things like that. So we have our cordage and our leaders. All right, next we have wire, snare wire. We can use wire for a variety of things, but snare wire, small gauge like this. This is 24, 26 gauge. We can use to set up snares. Again, passive trapping. We set it. We go back to our hide site. We rest. We check our traps routinely. We want to keep them relatively close to our hide site, but then if we don't get anything, we take up that wire, pack it back up, and put it back in our tin. All right, next we have a commando wire saw. So we have our knife. We also have just a small razor blade in here, but we have a commando wire saw. This one has 2 different blades with it, so we can exchange those blades. We have the D-ring handles that actually fit those blades, so if this blade breaks in the process of using it, we can take the handle off, remove the broken portion, and then restring this into the handle, or get out the second blade and apply that and then go back to work. There are a couple different ways we can use this commando saw, one of which is going to be as a bow saw. Here we have the bow saw frame, just a sapling that's bent over, split in the bottom with some paracord as whipping. If we can take our commando wire saw and simply fit the wire into those splits at the bottom of the bow, best as possible. Make it tight, and then now we can actually use this and saw through material, harvest that material and take it down. This is probably the safest way to use this. An alternate way to use something like this is called the toggle method. The method is going to be the toggle. And so we've got another Commando wire saw, D-rings on this one with swivels. Good to have. We just take a couple of sticks that we cut down. We can use our fingers at first with this saw and then create toggles to give ourselves a better purchase or handhold. And then now we have these toggles and we can use this and saw through material. When we saw using this method, we want to keep the saw blade as straight as possible. We don't want to do this method because we don't have a pocket chainsaw. This is just a wire saw. Keeping it straight means there's less tension on the wire, meaning that we're less likely to break it. As soon as we start to bend that wire and go back and forth, creating friction, sawing through material and increasing the heat on that wire, it's more likely to break. So we keep it straight as best as possible as we saw through. That way we can safeguard our saw and make it last for a little while before it eventually breaks. It will break because we have these small little joints next to the swivels that'll eventually give out, or the wire itself will just break from wear and tear over time. This isn't meant to be a forever tool. It's meant to process material long enough for a survival situation and long enough for us to craft shelter, get fire material, build some sort of signal, and then any other tools that we need before this thing breaks. So it's a very short-term tool, but still a very useful tool. So we have the toggle method here. All right, next we have a needle and magnets. Now, these magnets we can use as an improvisational compass as well. With our button compass, we want to kind of keep these separated in our tin as best as possible. But if we need a confirmation that our compass is right, we can take two small cylinder magnets like these and then get some thread. About these is that they stick to metal, so you'll never lose them. You can just stick them to the side of the tin inside. So what we do is we're going to get some thread from our sew kit. Get the little scissors that they didn't let us keep in SEER school for some reason. Just get a little piece of thread, snip it, and then now all we have to do is fix the thread right in between the two magnets here until it's suspended freely. And then all we have to do is wait for this to align north-south, which it looks like it's doing. Generally the same direction. I'm probably still a little close with this, and you know, button compasses aren't going to be incredibly accurate, but they're generally on line with each other, if you can see that. North is north, south is south. All right, so that way is south, behind me is north, so they seem to be perfectly good. So we can confirm with that, or we can even use just this method right here, suspending these magnets to give us a north-south line. Then all we have to do is look at the terrain around us, look at vegetation, look at the sun or the moon, and figure out exactly which direction is north, and then we can figure out the other cardinal directions from there. Just a basic technique. But from here, even with all that, we have that magnet. We can use even the needle from our sew kit or from this kit. Magnetize one end of that needle by rubbing the needle along the magnet. What this is doing is creating a negative charge at one end, moving all the electrons to one end of the needle itself. And we can magnetize this. And a good way to do this is to rub it about 100 times or more. And the way we can check if we just have a magnet and a needle, or we magnetize this ahead of time, we want to make sure that it's still magnetized, is grab our knife, and the tip of our knife blade also has a negative charge, so we should be able to pick this needle up using just the tip of our knife. And you can see it's wanting to work. So you can see we can pick it up, so we know it's magnetized. There we go. Now we've got it free floating right there. We know that needle's magnetized, and we would do the same thing that we did with these magnets. We just get out that piece of thread, tie it around the needle, and then let it swing until it finds the north-south line as best as possible, and then use, again, terrain features, the sun and the moon and the stars and everything else in between to determine our basic cardinal directions. And that's how we would magnetize a needle to use it to find basic cardinal directions. But wait, there's more. All right, so we've got our needle and we've got some fishing line. We have our leaders, and we can always carry line and hooks as part of our fish kit. We don't have to carry leaders. I would say carry both along with some really convincing lures, because we can use that instead of finding bait. But with fish line in our needle here, we can actually help create improvisational camouflage with our uniform. And let me demonstrate. So we've got my uniform right here. And if we're ever captured, I know the first thing to be coming off is going to be a lot of these patches and things, just to appear more like a pogue or somebody that's not important. Just remember, one of Murphy's rules, all right, is that the enemy may be low on ammo, so try to look unimportant, okay? So we give her all these patches and all the rank and everything to avoid the enemy's gunfire. Now what we can do with our fishing line in our needle here is simply take out some line. We don't need a lot for demonstration's sake. This is something that I picked up from a World War II vet, because he ended up surviving in the Philippines for almost 30 years. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna come underneath our name tapes here, and all we're gonna do is punch a hole with this needle and this fishing line, and we're gonna create just a basic loop. We're gonna go back through, and we can do this a couple of times. It doesn't really matter how many times we do this. All right, but we're just gonna pull it through. So we have our loop, and let's say we've secured that loop. Our needle's going back in our survival tin. Now with this loop, we would make multiple loops down the line, and we would secure them in place and leave a little bit of slack so we can pull them out through the front or through the back, because one good technique is that we can take this shirt off, flip it around backwards, and then even use the inside of this coat as our camouflage. So we've got duty uniform on the outside, flip it over, and we've got sewn in camouflage from burlap sacks or whatever, or different pieces of camo. We can reverse this jacket or the blouse and then actually use the underside as camouflage while keeping it hidden as part of our kit. Big hairball right there. All right, so we've got our loop. Just gonna do a quick overhand on these so we don't lose them in the process. All right, so we got a loop, and we've got this. Now what we can do with this loop is actually create improvised camouflage with it. What we're gonna do is take a piece of camouflage that fell off during the storm yesterday, and then now all we have to do is we can break it off in small sections and string it through our improvised camouflage holder right here. And we can do this again down the line more and more. We can create multiple loops. But now what we've done is made a way to secure vegetation to our coat and use this as individual concealment moving through the jungle. And then once we're done, all we have to do is take it out, throw it away, or if the vegetation begins to die and change colors, we just take it out and replace it with other vegetation. And now we can keep putting green stuff in there to continuously improve our concealment, or to at least never let it fade. Wear that and then continue to move through the field with improvisational camouflage ready to go. Just a very hasty technique right there, using needle and some fishing line, strong material, to hold our improvisational camouflage in place and give us a better chance of concealing ourselves or breaking up that human outline from the head down to the shoulders, the armpits, and then down to the waist, kind of that V shape. So a good technique right there. All right, next item is a nail. This one we've sharpened on the tip. And what we can do with this is create traps and use it for different things, as well as construction if we had to. We can use it for a trap trigger, but a good technique, a bushcraft technique, is to get a stick, a small one like this, or we can make it a little bit longer if we have to. Make a trimmed end, split it down the middle, and then cut out the inside in the shape of the top of our nail. And then all we have to do is slap our nail in there, close the stick around it. Now we're going to use those zip ties I pulled out earlier. Tighten it down, we use one more. Grab our knife. Cut off the tag end, or keep them if you want to take the zip ties off and use them for something else later. And then now what we have is just a simple awl or reamer that we can use to actually punch into metal. So we got a can of bubbly water here, but we can use our reamer or our awl here to actually just punch a hole straight through. All right. You see how easy it works on this type of metal, thicker metal, we can actually use it as well, or at least punch holes, or even use it for bushcraft with just natural materials around the area. But a nail like that, this is a good tool to have, plus it doubles as a prison shank. Another good item to have that I mentioned earlier is just a simple razor blade, an alternate cutting tool for processing material or for fine cuts that we may need to do, or for processing game. Use this for processing game, use this larger knife for processing materials. Still pretty good. All right, another item is a hacksaw. With this hacksaw, we can obviously cut through small pieces of metal, but there's another use, or a couple of uses for this hacksaw. One is obviously as a ferro rod striker, if we don't bend it while we're using it. Good there. But most hacksaws are also high carbon steel, so we can use this with a hard rock to attempt to drive some sparks off. Okay, so another use for our survival tin, along with this hacksaw and then a hard rock, is as a flint and steel kit. So we take that tin and we char material inside, so we have our char cloth here, and then now all we have to do is find a hard rock with this char material. And I would recommend always having like a cravat as part of your kit, or a bandana, some sort of material, 100% cotton material. It's a cravat that can be found in a lot of military kits to use to turn into our char material. And then now all we have to do is use it as a flint and steel kit, driving sparks. Have an easy way to start fire right there. All we have to do is have that first fire. Close it up, seal off the oxygen, and that char will go out. So another technique there with our survival tin combined with that hacksaw and a hard rock, improvised military flint and steel kit right there. Obviously no survival kit is complete without safety pins. This we take from our cravat or from other kits, and we can use it for clothing and repair. We can also use it and turn it into improvised fish hooks. There you can see two improvised fish hooks made from one safety pin. So we've got the bottom of the safety pin right here, top of the safety pin right here, and we have two different fish hooks for 2 attempts, or at least as long as these last until the fish bite it off or it's broken or whatever, to get fish from the water's edge to attempt to feed ourselves. So always take a safety pin and put it in your hat. In fact, I've got a safety pin in my hat already at all times for just such emergencies, as well as to use those safety pins for not only hooks, but for digging out splinters or keeping clothing together. Always a good thing to have. There's always room in your survival tin for some safety pins. And then one of the last things we have here are earplugs. Yep, we want to protect our ears to avoid that VA claim, right? But we want to have earplugs in here for other purposes as well. One of the best that I've seen so far is as an improvised bobber for a fishing kit, like our hobo reel. And so we'll take out our knife and pull off some line here. We're going to remove that hook. We can take the hook, put it back in our tin. Another good use for a tin like this is as tackle or for collecting bait. I actually did some corn husking this morning, and so I've got some worms that were inside the sweet corn, and they're going to be bait for fishing later. But now with this and that needle again, I'm going to grab our line, put it through the eye of the needle, and then we're going to shove our needle through. We'll keep the orange side up so we can see it when it's out of the water. We're just going to shove it straight through, pull the line through, and now we have our bobber, even a slip bobber right here because it goes up and down the line. We'll grab that hook, reattach it or tie it back off. Attach our line. We've got our slip bobber. If we've got a complete fishing kit with us, we can apply a nice weight or a sinker to our fish kit. So now we have our slip bobber, which will stop on the weight. We have our hook, sinker, ready to go. And now we have our hobo reel, the complete kit. We can just string up, nice and easy. We have that fish kit right there, ready to go. Of note is that I've taken a cork, drilled out the bottom of my hobo reel, and put some more tackle in there, terminal tackle, a couple of hooks. We could also take that same earplug, shove it down in there, and keep it as an alternate bobber, cap it off, and we have a complete fish kit right here, good to go. All right, guys, so to recap, as we pack all this back up, we can use our tin as a bait holder. We'll put it in the cup. We got our notebook and pencil, not only for leaving messages, but for also creating improvised compasses. We've got our needle, which we're gonna attach to the bottom here with our magnets that are on the corner, right there. We've got our razor blade, our hacksaw for flint and steel kit, as well as processing material out. We got our wire and our D-rings for our commando saw. We got snare wire, improvisation. We got our 2 safety pins. We got our leaders. We got our nail, our knife, water bag, earplug, our currency, our arrowhead, and then even underneath that we've got cordage, and then our small ferrule rod to go right on top. Just shove it in there, all nice and neat like. Get rid of our extra material, all our demos. And then lastly, we've got a couple of zip ties we can fit in here. And then that tin foil goes right over top. Shove everything right down in, nice and neat. Close the tin, grab our tape, tape this tin up. And we've got our kit right there. All right, guys, a bit of a longer video today. I wanted to go through a lot of examples, which is how we got to a longer video. And so I included all the tools, but only a few examples because there were just too many to do. I'm gonna incorporate those into some other videos so you guys can see those at work out in the field as opposed to our desktop demos right now. So a down and dirty video today. A longer video, but I really hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate your feedback. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.